All right, so I've started the recording. All right, so let's start the meeting. First, so welcome everyone. Happy November. Been an interesting month, obviously, so far. So let's first order of business is reviewing and approving the minutes from the last meeting. So thanks to Paul for sending those out. If there are any questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Anna Marie.
I really shouldn't.
And it's fine. Jeff, this is Jeff. I will second it. So all in favor?
Aye, Anna Marie.
All right, that's unanimous. So, all right. So the minutes have been approved. Thanks, Paul, for creating those. So on the docket, as you saw on the agenda I sent out, just are the two key topics that we've been talking about. First, want to chat about Everbridge, just update where we are and some thoughts around that. And then second is around the consolidated database. And the two Mikes, Mike Abbott and Mike Bob, have been working with Bob and so forth. And so there's more, they'll provide more information there. So I think we're making progress of how we can consolidate all these lists. So I think we'll have some good conversation there and, an ability to get additional names and so forth. So we'll hold off on discussing that till those guys join. But why don't we kick off and start with the Everbridge. So Chris, can you just give us update from your perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris Kaiser, IT. And so Everbridge, one of the concerns and challenges for OEM and for CERT, and I think the front office as well, was to try to build what they call a sandbox. We finally got a hold of our integration rep. He came back and stated that they had quoted us incorrectly, that it would be a lot more money for a 3-year contract than a single year. So going forward, I just went in and built a couple of test environments so that they could go ahead and fix the issues or test so that they can send out without having any kind of where they didn't feel like they were competent or capable, so they could send it 2 or 3 contacts. So that's kind of where it is now. Russ Kimes, I think, has tried it or is going to try it. Tucker Murphy was going to do it as well. I know she's been very busy with all that Kevin's got going on this week. I didn't expect everybody in the front office to be able to go ahead and use those, but so we were able to work that around. We're still waiting on training. I think we're going to, like we discussed last month, I reached out. Everybody's kind of extremely busy. No one's gotten really back to me about how they would like to go forward using it. And the next discussion, as we said last month again, was the buy-in from the department heads. So
Paul Eureka. Could
Hi,
you
Paul.
just go back to, you started off by saying you were hoping to set up a sandbox capability.
Yep.
And then the next thing I heard was that Everbridge wanted more money or something to do that.
Yeah,
am I missing something in between those two statements?
No, not really. From last month, we discussed it as well. They were trying to set up a test environment, which people call a sandbox, where they can go play in it and not worry about it, right? So we asked for a quote. They came back with a 1-year contract, and come to find out after, I guess it was 2 or 3 weeks of Russ going back and forth with the Everbridge salesperson, that they can't do a 1 year. It's $500 a year. It would have been $1,500 for the 3 years. Something we weren't expecting. And it was because of the organizational arrangement that we have, or configuration. What that means is we have an alerting system for the public. We have an alerting system for internal. So that's 2. And CERT took the 3rd organization so that they had special exceptions that they were already using from the last alcohol notification system, and they really wanted to keep those. So it was said that they could go ahead and use the 3rd organization prior to knowing that we needed an organization, if you will, to do our test environment. And so that we basically said, listen, we can do this and just build test templates and test incidents, and they're called events. So we built one for each of those, so that now that they can go ahead and just send to the 4 people or 5 people that are in those contact lists. So it won't go out to the general public.
Okay. That works.
Yeah,
For
right.
$1,500, that works.
Right. And we were only going to need it for 6 months. So to spend $1,500 was just ridiculous to practice, if you will,
Why do we only need it for 6 months?
because everybody would have known what they were doing after that. It was more to make
Yeah,
people
we'll
feel
never
more
have
comfortable.
anybody new do it in the future. That's good. Okay.
Right. Right. So yeah, we're
Okay.
I talked to the state rep, and the gentleman that does the 911 dispatching for Connecticut Alert, CT Alert, and he's willing to go ahead and train our dispatchers, which he does all the dispatchers in the state, and anyone else who would like to actually sit in on some of the side training. And what he means by the side training is that he has specific training for the dispatchers for notification. And they're pretty much, they say that they're only allowed because they're groomed for a specific event or notification. And then he'll do his side training to the higher ups, Kevin's office, myself, Public Works, so that we can actually send out on their system as well. They are, in fact, trying to build a single database login or registration. They have done it in Florida counties. So they're in Massachusetts trying to work on it right now as well. And what that means is if you sign up for New Canaan or if you sign up for CT Alert, you'll actually be enrolled in both databases. But right now you can either have 2 links, one for the local, or you can have, and one for the state, or you can have one for the local, and then he will actually enter into our database and do a manual export and bring it up to this Connecticut Alert system. But that's the next step. We don't want to, and I talked to Kevin about this, and I think he's exactly right. We don't want to run before we're walking. Our departments don't know how to use it yet. We really need more training on it. We need to feel a lot more comfortable with, say, the geofencing and tagging and targeting, the events as opposed to notifications, weather events, vote. We could have used it for voting, things like that. And once we have that, yep.
Chris, let me just say a few words, just so I make sure we're on the same page.
Sure.
So we are using it for outcalls for emergency purposes, and I use it. I'm really using it for OEMs. So when Russ did one last week for that wind event, so that works for us as far as the emergency communications. Stuart is satisfied it works for what his purposes were, as did Blackboard before. HR is using it. Knows how to use it. The police department, I don't. The police department never actually ever used Blackboard. They could. Did they ever use it? Ever use Blackboard?
Only during the Doulos case.
Okay, so but the police, I think, know how to use it. And the one group that hasn't really used it yet is DPW. We look forward to being able to geofence and give people notice of a road being paved or something, rather than we go out and actually post on people's doorknobs. So we're high touch, high service in New Canaan in terms of communication before events when it comes to Public Works. So we haven't really gotten to Public Works, but it's doing what we want it to do. I think what Russ Kimes was talking about as far as the sandbox was being able to set up a lot of prepared communications. So we, for example, if we have a storm coming up, we have an archive or a library of messages we can just pick from rather than having to freeform things. Right now, with COVID and with a hurricane, we freeform, whatever, right? So am I off track in terms of what Russ wanted to accomplish with the sandbox?
No, that's correct. But that also is what we're trying to build as well as the templates. But yes, and that's exactly where we want to be. We want to have all of these pre-existings so that they can just reach to it, click on it, and send. Right.
Yeah, but Everbridge clearly gives you the ability to have templates. We
Absolutely.
You've set up a template really for my weekly outcalls.
Yes.
And then you drop in the text. And, I'm pretty close to learning it myself, but I obviously I haven't learned it entirely. The system has great capabilities, and as what Chris was saying, as far as the state of Connecticut uses Everbridge, and because they do, we can interface. And although I quite honestly, I don't know if any of you get Connecticut alerts, but I don't. I'm not sure how valuable they are. I mean, the state must think they're valuable, but do you get CT alerts?
Well, if we drove around the state a lot more, we would probably find some value in that. But if you don't
Right.
leave
Yeah.
on a New Canaan very often, then
Exactly. I mean, I don't find much, so I'm not sure there's a big appetite among our residents to also have CT alerts.
Yeah.
The state constantly with their emails say, sign up for CT alerts, but I'm not sure why. I
So-
want to.
Yeah, it could be an interesting story for us is to try it. I don't think I've signed up for them.
Yeah.
As I understand, if there's like a Amber Alert or something that's more regional focused,
Yeah.
you would get it. Whereas, and it was something that wasn't coming out of our own EOC, right?
Yeah. In a
So-
hurricane, you would also get messages from not a hurricane, I guess a hurricane. So because they are active in terms of especially storm events, that kind of thing. So you'd be getting messages from New Canaan as well as from the state.
So maybe it's worth all of us going on and
Yeah.
signing up for it just so we can see.
where do we do that?
Chris, where do you get signed up for CT alerts?
Right now, they have it up on the state site. They don't have New Canaan because we have not said yes to it. So you would go up to the ConnecticutCT.gov and look for CT alert. Then you would just put in your information, you put in your zip code, and they also, as they explain it, it's a pretty good topic and conversation to have with them, to listen to them, because they have some really good ideas of what we could even use our own for,
Yeah.
even if we don't go with them. So that's why I want to
The point is that
bring
they've
Scott
become
Mike in.
expert. They've become
Right.
expert in using it,
Right.
so we can use them as a resource. And
Right.
Exactly.
okay, so
And training as well. So even if we say we'd like the training on a CT alert, which
Yeah.
they're not going to come tell us in New Canaan, it's the same product. So we'll
Right.
pick up a lot of pointers that way as well.
right. So the point, we sort of feel like we bought a Ferrari and we don't know how to drive it yet.
Yeah, we can't get out of first.
But it's doing what we want it to do, and we will. Yesterday was training. Tucker was on training. There was a 3-hour training session yesterday so she spent time on there, and she found it rather valuable. Different municipalities around the country were talking about how they use it, and so the product is good. It's just it's kind of got a lot of functionality that we got to learn how to use.
So I think
Yeah,
that-
and we're continuing going forward. So it's an every week thing. Again, with everything that's been going on lately, it's tough to take a 3-hour training course and hop into everything else. But we're trying the best we can to keep up to date. And it actually helps with Kevin and health sending something out once a week, so we get familiar and we stay familiar with it.
Yeah. So exactly. Keep in mind. Anyway, so the other thing what I just want to mention, as we talked about before, we didn't do a great job launching in August as far as marketing it to our residents, but
Right.
We have all the data in there. We're communicating with residents. The one thing we really haven't figured out to do is to go out and explain to them how they can go and register. We call it completing the registration because they're sort of pre-registered in there, so that they can go in and change their information. So that part of it, we only have how many 2,700 or something, 17, I don't know what the number is, but who have done that. And I did it for the first time the other day. And it's not quite intuitive as to you go and you kind of register again. And then I'm not confident that it matches up what's in there about me versus the information. It's almost like, re-registering. So we're trying to figure that part of it out, how to switch over. So all the data we have in there about a resident's name and email address and phone numbers, and get them to be able to go in and change that information. That part is still a mystery to us.
Hey, Chris, can our Everbridge training people help us? I think it's a good question, right? If we've got a database of residents in there, to Kevin's point of emailing out to them to say, hey, go in and complete your your profile, but avoid them setting up a brand new profile and then being in there twice.
No, the problem with when we imported everything from Blackboard, the best way to honestly to have this done is to have them sign up by themselves in a porthole. If they use the member portal, they're assigned a user ID and a password. because we batched them in from the prior system and from other lists, they don't get the user ID. So they're going to be in there anyway. The good thing is it does a deduplication email address or list, phone number, contact, first name, last name. So it will not send 3 or 4 times to the same contact information if it knows it already has it. So the idea is to run a cleanup after a while, after people, and we have probably a couple hundred, maybe 200 this week that have signed in, maybe a little less, but it's still out there growing. It's just it would be better if people logged in themselves, created their user information exactly how they want to see it and how they want to get it. And for the other fact that we don't have a lot of the information from the old system, such as home address, and then their longitude and latitude for the GPS and the geo fencing.
You know, keep in mind though, it's accomplishing, the town of Fairfield left Code Red, or what was the name? And then Code Red said, we own the data. So you've got to, when they went to a new vendor, they had to start from bottom up again. That
Right.
takes a long time. In 10 years with Blackboard, we only had 3,000 email addresses. We had a lot of phone numbers, but self-registration takes a long time to build up. People, and whereas we're in there, we're like probably 90% of who we want to communicate with, but we don't have the ability for them to go in and update the information. And it's, possibly with this tool we're talking about building, maybe we could actually take the data out of Everbridge, manipulate it to match up, and then go back in and assign them the ID numbers. So,
But it sounds like the ideal scenario is if we can get people to go in and set up their profile in Everbridge, that's our best
yeah, right.
case.
But we
of
never,
getting-
keep in mind, we didn't do that in August because we were trying to wrote over within the time frame we were losing Blackboard.
No. It's just meaning like as a go forward, this seems like this is a good approach. And Kevin, you mentioned, hey, the marketing angle of it, I know there's a lot going on, but how can we kickstart that? Or is there anything this committee could do to help you?
The problem is time. We're really busy on a lot of other things. And, the good thing is it's working for the purpose we want it to work for right now. Ideally, we'd spend time taking it to the next level. And we will. It's just that COVID doesn't give you a lot of time to do that.
Right. Is this something that you think, now you're getting into the holidays, people are distracted, a lot going on. Is this seriously, is this a project that, we pick up in early January when, people have gotten through whatever the holidays are going to look like this year, at least, just trying to think of, how we can move that
Well,
forward.
I actually think the master database we're trying to build will help this cause, because then we're going to be able to communicate and knowing who we're sending. Right now we can be sending out emails or calling people. We know we have the phone number, we know we have the email, but we don't know who they are.
Right.
Because the data is fragmented. Some of the data we put in, like for the constant contact list, we had email addresses only because that's the only thing required to make constant contact work. You don't have to have the name and address, right? So we have fragments of information, and so same thing. Anyway, so it's a matter of trying to clean up what we have and make it work better.
Right.
But it's working.
Yeah, no, I think the key is, hey, we moved over to a new platform. It's working. Your emails are going out, your alerts are going out. So, while we may only be in first on our Ferrari, we're moving. So
exactly.
And then, we've got plenty of runway, and we haven't hit the Autobahn yet, but
Right.
we'll get there.
We're not.
That's right. Well, honestly, I also expected too that Everbridge was going to be able to do more of this for us and tell us how they could manipulate our data once it's in there. And I think maybe the capability is in there to do it, because when we were talking originally with Chris, the salesman or whoever our account rep was, he gave me the impression we could do that, but we haven't seen it.
They always give you the impression they can do it.
Yeah, the sales guy is very confident.
Spoken like true sales.
And then they ask for more money.
Right.
Yeah, I did notice, but when you do self-register, it's kind of you put in your information, and then it populates a map with your location on the Google map, and it says, "Is this where you live?" And then you acknowledge that, because they're trying to confirm the geo, what's the
Targeting,
word? Geo-targeting. So, and that's the advantage of the self-registering, because then they have confirmation that your address is where you otherwise I think it assumes, the address is where you live because
Right.
it's in there. If they
Right.
have-
It just goes by the zip code. So it knows you're in New Canaan. It just doesn't know where in New Canaan.
Right.
Right.
So I think it's, to your point, it's a good that, it can help identify that. You personally as a resident can validate all that, number one. But number two is then you can also tell how you want to be communicated to, right?
Yeah.
I can say, oh no, text me or send me an email or however I want
Yeah.
to receive messages. So that's the other benefit.
Yeah, I've thought about going out with a mailing or just an email blast that says how to use Everbridge.
Yeah.
But we haven't figured out exactly what to describe to them yet.
Okay. So it sounds like more to come on that side, which is good. So we'll keep talking about how do we help from a marketing standpoint. Put that on the agenda going forward. And then Chris, you were saying from a training, you're going to keep following up with them to see what additional training they could do. Obviously, it's also bandwidth of the people who would attend the training too. So those are all the challenges there.
Right. Right now, it's a very busy time for us, and with budget coming up as well. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep sending it to them, and hopefully people continue to do it. It's part of Everbridge's support, which is free online training and free training period. It's not free, but you know what I mean? It's unlimited, I should say. So yeah, we're every week we're sending something out, and
What were we talking about training?
the department heads, anybody that's going to use the system.
Okay.
So, and the problem is if they don't use it enough, Paul, they, like anything else, right? They tend to forget. So it's a
Absolutely.
phone call back to IT, or it's a phone call to Everbridge. It's yeah. So
And there aren't that many, Chris.
no, right.
It's really going to be DPW. I mean, parking and recreation are going to continue to use Constant Contact for their communication purposes because it works for them. It's really more of a marketing communication than a. They don't have needs for geo targeting and that kind of stuff.
All right. So anything else on Everbridge? Sounds like we're in first, but we're moving forward. So
Got to find the clutch. We'll be good.
all right. So thanks. That's a good update. So second topic was one to get into is our resident database, which obviously is connected to our first topic. And I know, so Mike Abbott, are you, thanks for joining.
Hi, Emma. Sorry, just a little late.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Mike.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome.
It looks like Mike Bopp hasn't been able to join us yet. So when he joins, but I know we, would love for you to just describe, sort of the approach that you've been taking with Mike Bopp as well, or proposed approach.
What we discussed together
Yeah.
on the whole thing. So we took we'll probably go through it piece by piece here. One, Bob, thank you for creating that Excel file, right? I had started to create some Python code to try to normalize this whole thing and realized very quickly that it was not going to be a trivial amount of work for me. And I even had the kids try to help out at it. But Mike, it turns out that Mike Bopp has some resources that do this stuff day in and day out and do a bunch of address matching for the client, for the company he works for. So he graciously volunteered to take that Excel file. We went over it. We went over all the details in it, where I'd seen the different matching problems and informational problems. And I think, Bob, you've been through this, so you know what I just learned just going through that simple sample set as to all of the errors that are in there and how you have to make judgment calls in terms of which email address to take. I mean, just to give everyone an idea on the call alone, it's like if you take Jeff Platt's email in there, there's actually two. There's one that has his right email, and then for some reason, Platt got added to the front of his email, and it's a Platt plus his name plus add an email. So it looks like yet another email that makes absolutely no sense. So it has it definitely has an enormous amount of potentially conflicting different information from different databases that has to be sorted through. So Mike's taking all that. He's having his Python programmers go through and try to normalize out that information, extract the different formats that are in the different databases and fields, get them into a common format, and then merge them together to figure out, okay, what is the best logic and best answer to pull for each of the fields and addresses. The way we'll go about it is kind of fairly systematic, is to, at the base level, we're going to look for the unique addresses that are in town. So all the unique addresses. And I think the assessor's database probably is going to be the most logical one for that, because it feels like that's all of the physical addresses is a good starting point. The question will become, residential versus commercial, and how do we want to handle that? But we can deal with that at a later date. Once you have an address, it's going to be figuring out who physically belongs to that address, right? I mean, remember, it may not be last name match. It's just literally who is tied to that address, and then what ages are they, and where do they potentially come from? So permissionability components on that. So now if you have address and unique individuals tied to that address, and the unique individual may actually go to two addresses. We'll have to find out, especially if they moved. We'll have to figure out, have to eventually figure out what's the current one. Then if you have that individual, then the idea is, okay, put the contact information against that individual afterwards. So you can kind of see how this is going to work. Household individuals, contact information against an individual is the ultimate goal to get to. So we started off with, I think, 3 or 4 records, Bob, that you pulled of us. I think it was myself, Jeff, you, and I can't remember who. I think
We might have used Kevin.
We might have used Kevin.
Yeah, we had about 5 or 6.
About 5 or 6 people. So we started off with that. Mike started off with that database. We had a discussion about probably a week and a half ago now, Jeff.
Right.
That we started this. So he's got it kicked off. He's made some progress. We talked about using the address verification system on the U.S. Postal Service to actually ensure that we get the right normalized addresses, because there's an API out there that I looked at that will pull when you hit it with an address, it'll come back with a normalized address. So what happens is, it's a great system to say, if I live at 406, well, I shouldn't probably say it's recorded, right?
Is that available to us?
What's that?
Is that available to us? We have to buy it or pay for it, or?
It's available to everybody. I played around with it, but it's you're supposed to use it to mail postal service, but we got to try to find a way to use it. And what happens is, if you have like Hoyt Farm Road, and it's road is spelled out, not spelled out, etc., it'll take versus Hoyt Farm Road, it'll actually normalize those addresses when you hit it, and then it'll come up with one address. That way you can take,
I've used it. Everybody's used it. If you
type in an address,
post office, then you start sending stuff.
Yeah, or there's a lot of e-commerce
sites.
You'll see that where they'll say, this is what you typed in. We recommend this address. Can we use that? And that comes from the USPS.
Right.
Yeah, actually, Jeff, that's exactly what Everbridge did when I signed up, when I went into register.
Yeah.
I put in my information, and then it presents not only the map where I am on the map, but I reformatted address.
You got it. And
Yeah.
Kevin, that's exactly what we're going through. So we go through that. So you can see what that'll do is that'll clean up the map address. And it actually, I try to remember behind the scenes, I think the API may actually give you a lat long
Right.
position behind that. You don't really see that when you're seeing it presented, but it gives you some really good information. So I wanted to kind of run it through that to clean up the addresses and get them normalized. So where we are, so Mike and I went through all that. I walked him through all the code and I walked through the concepts of what we were looking at and so on. He got it. Set off his team. He's already started writing some stuff. Got to figure out the USPS, because it's really only meant to be for people for doing shipping, but I'm sure we can find something there, way around it. The other thing he needs to do, if Mike was here, he'd say what we need to do is we need to now find a way to expand that list, because just doing it with 4 or 5 names, I mean, we could identify just visually the errors that were going to be in there. Yeah, I'm guessing to get the learning set done right on this, we probably need a couple hundred out of the 8,000. Or if we could get the full 8,000 in the databases. So the question comes up is, what does it take to get that? Again, we did the ones with permission from everyone that we took already. We gave our permission for it. But now we got to find a way to expand it. And then, how do we make sure, Kevin, that whatever we do it, on the right side of requirements in terms of, where we take it, what we do with it, et cetera, across the board. But we're gonna get to a point pretty quickly where we'll be able to run the code.
And then just to follow that through, Mike, right? Then the idea is to take that code and then bring it back into the town system. So then now it can run within the town's environment, so that you have the security element there. But you need to go ahead.
Right. And it'll be general Python code. So this is not complicated stuff. It's once we get the files and extract them, it's it's an interpretive language. It's pretty easy to run on any town system. I think Chris would have, pick one, run it. But then it would be inside the town. And then what would happen is, Kevin, is we're kind of, as these databases are updating, you could, run it, merge it, purge it, consolidate it, and then you could push it back up. Now, the problem is once you snap the line on that, right? Once you snap the line and you push it out, then you get into this whole, Chris will tell you, this whole question of incrementals and changes, and that becomes a bear.
Right.
To push it out. So you snap the line once, you put it out there, then the problem is going to start getting out of sync. That's where your single sign-on question comes back in, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure a single sign-on, but the idea of how do you maintain it?
Well,
For example, we just went through an election, and now we have the highest point we will have for 4 years in terms of the number of people that say they live in New Canaan with the voter registration list. That's 14,000 people. Now, included in there are like 2,000 kids between the ages of 18 and 25 who still claim their parents' address as their, and we're not interested in those kids. We're interested in only the adults, parents, and the other adults who live there full time. Or I shouldn't even say full time, who live in New Canaan. At least they claim they live in New Canaan at the addresses they've given.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Kevin, that's why I went through and I said the household. Remember, that's why it's household people that are in there, contact information.
Okay, but now keep in mind, Bob can produce for us an official Excel spreadsheet list of 7,000 residential addresses, because he did this with all the what do you call it, the sewer billing, where you have multifamily units downtown, you have apartments, and on the assessor's record it shows who the owner is. We're interested in who actually lives there, right? Which is two different things. I mean, oftentimes because you have houses, single family homes are easy, but oftentimes the owner of even single family homes will be an LLC, and you want to go to the voter registration list to say who actually lives there, and is so Bob, if Bob produces a master list of 7,000 residential addresses, we'll put the commercial ones from the side. That becomes the Bible, because then we have people who are snowbirds. They live in Florida, but they have a condo in Hathaway Commons. Right. So we have to then we have people who are non-voters, but they live here because they're foreign residents. They're not citizens. They don't vote here. So that's the point.
Well, by the way, now you're getting, so just bear with me. So you're getting into what we started to get to.
Yeah.
Household, roof over your head, physical box you can live in, right? And it could be a house or an apartment. We got to get that whole record.
Yeah.
And we have to put the people to the.
That's right.
Sign them. And then the real challenge is getting all the information about that person, the contact. If you want, you could have voter registration, you could have age.
No, but actually, we don't care about that. All we care about, it's very simple. Once we get the 7,000 addresses, we need name, address, email address, phone number. That's four elements, and that's ideally what we're looking for. And
you're going to get.
And oftentimes you'll have two adults in a home. We don't care about the kids who are 18 to 20.
But here's the problem.
Yeah.
When the kids show up, and by the way, I am the case study in this, right? I am the case study because Kathleen and I are here by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Ian lives in Massachusetts, he's in Boston, and Connor's living in Germany.
Yeah.
Both of them show up in one of the databases. They would get picked up as 407. And unless you know their names, you really are not going to know, Kevin, that they don't live there.
But see, thanks to the voter registration list, you can see.
But that's not perfect.
No, it is. I mean, it shows the ages, because we have to know what the age of people are.
How about if they didn't register to vote?
Well, that's my point. Is that 14,000 names is a really good start at figuring out who should go in the 7,000 boxes.
By the way, Connor and Ryan are registered to vote too. So congratulations! I just blew that theory too.
But Kevin, there's some other information that that was in those databases, like there is plate number, right?
I'm sorry, plate number for transportation and parking. You're right.
Yeah, well, and if we get I don't think, Bob, you gave us, I don't think we got the transfer station one, right? It's not in that. That wasn't in the list.
You may be correct, because when I gave that to you, we're in the middle of registering that. We're up to about 1,880 permit holders and about 2,500 passes issued.
So
But there
anyways,
was- there were
the long and short of this is household, person, and then contact information. But the difference is you can get the contact information from a lot of different sources, and it needs to be reconciled. That's where we ran into the Jeff Platt, the Jeff Platt at gmail.com, Jeff Platt at gmail.com, and all the other issues that we're going to see on contact information. Cell phone numbers that have been mangled, had ones and zeros added to them. It's amazing.
Yeah. The problem is, people use multiple email addresses and, someone
Exactly.
said,
You won't know whether it's right or wrong.
well, or you won't know which ones they prefer to use.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You won't know
that's-
the preferred one. You won't know.
Right,
So we're going to have to, we got to figure that out. And so
Yeah, before
we
you
might
got out,
come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
before you got on, we mentioned the fact that in our Outlook system, because we use Outlook,
Yeah.
we have thousands and thousands of emails from residents that are communicating with for one reason or another. And usually, if they're writing in, they're complaining about something, or if they're we have their email address, who it came from, and they sign it, usually with an address, right? If we could go in and harvest those, figure out the logic of all those email addresses we have in the system, we could get email addresses
Well-
that they've communicated to us with, so we know that's how they want to be communicated back to.
By the way, so that comes down to another name, address,
Right.
name, address, potential match, and then email address, another source. And then what happens is we're going to have to, I think, and Mike's not here, but we're going to have to eventually go through the code in the databases. And I think we're going to have to do effectively a scoring to say, like you said, voter registration, 1, emailed me, 1, right?
Yeah.
Very, very trustworthy.
Yeah.
6-year-old registration from Department of Rec.
Yeah.
3.
There's another piece that I want to say, though. Rather than doing this, considering our universe is only 7,000 households, which is not the biggest universe in the world,
Yeah.
and since probably about 80% of the information does match up pretty well, whether we should just do it manually.
Census, a New Canaan census.
No, but do it manually in the sense that Bob has worked on all these. He's worked on all the seniors. He's perfected the email addresses, the contact information of the seniors for his senior list, right? We've done it for transfer station purposes. We do it. We're about to do it for parking.
So,
But what's interesting is the seniors, I focused on 65 and older last year, which I got their address, I got their ages. But now I've got a whole new class of people who graduated into the 65 range from 64. And so we've got to focus on birth dates. So it automatically updates our cells, and then I find people who die.
Keep in mind, the reason we built that Excel spreadsheet was as a tool for the human services people to use to be able to communicate with seniors, outreach, but also to understand what services they're using.
Yeah.
So this is a master database that human services can go and look at the 3,000 seniors and see that they're getting Meals on Wheels. They're a member of Staying Put. All these things that we wanted to be able to say. So you kind of build a profile as to who you're serving.
Yeah, they're using a couple of $1 million of extra services, but they're contributing about $30 million in property tax.
And those 3,000 are pretty stable population, except when they die or move to Florida.
So Kevin, you could do a manual. In fact, we could go through this whole thing, get it set up. So one of the things I looked at when I was starting to write it, I said, if I pull in all the data against an individual like Jeff Platt, and then I pull in what I think is the most likely, I can also pull in a whole vector of all the other sources of information. And then if you had some interns or whatever, you could sit down and literally pull it up and say, okay, this address has Jeff Platt. This is what we think is his most likely. What are all the other potential sources?
I'm thinking about making this an intern project.
Yeah, an intern project, exactly.
Because it's not 20,000, it's not 30,000, it's 7,000 households.
No, you could do it.
Yeah. But so again, if we can make the tool, I am concerned about future maintenance. As you said, once you get it, it immediately starts getting old because people die, people move, but the voter registration list is actually the one where they stay on top of it. They keep on track of who dies. They keep on, so that's a resource we can use because it's all public information. The voter registration list is totally public. Anybody who asks for it can get it.
Kevin, the only one concern I'd have with manually is while there's only 7,000 households, the number of contacts is multiples of that, right?
No, well, not the names. I mean, usually.
No, it's the same name, but each list is got a.
Yeah, you're correct.
If you're manually needing to match them up, you need to go through all those lists, which could be, I mean, Bob, you know, like what, what multiples of, of lines of names are you going
It's
through?
easy to be five, six, or seven. I mean, and then there's the information we develop because we're focused on some of these lists. The transfer station is a great one. I told Kevin one day, I said, after we're all done here, we can sort these license plates by state, and we can catch the people who have their cars rented in Vermont, and because they're cheating on the property tax.
Yeah, but that's not what we're doing this for.
Oh.
Bob, we're not, that's not what we're doing this for.
So
I vote for that.
Sorry, I spent a lot of time of my life collecting bad debt. I don't trust people.
So back to the task at hand, because the good news is that we have this, thank you, Bob, the Excel files, right? We get starting.
Good.
Mike has graciously volunteered to move beyond my mediocre Python coding and get us some professionals in volunteer time, which is good. What we need now to decide is how can we get more names and can we expand the sources? So Kevin, to your point, I don't think we have the voter registration rolls, Bob. I don't think those were in the databases that were sent to me in that Excel file.
Voter registration isn't held locally, is it?
I might have given that to you, but we're going to get a new dump of the whole voter registration list in a couple of weeks.
So we need to figure out what can we get. So if we can get all the data and all the databases we can have, and then we can take them from here to there or end them or whatever it may be, then we can finish writing this thing up and decide where we want to go with it.
Yeah, Paul, to answer your question, the voter registration is on the state system, but George Cody several times a year downloads in a Excel spreadsheet all 14,000 names and all the data. So we constantly go back to that for various purposes.
When we get this group of 100 names, would you want it in such a fashion that I'm giving you, for example, transfer station, everybody of that 100 transfer station given to them separate, or would you like it the way
no, just dump it raw.
I did the other one? Okay.
Yeah, dump it raw, because the reason why we need it dumped raw, Bob, is because no one's ever going to go clean it up after that. So what we want is, I want, hey, if this file comes in this format, this CSV format, I want it coming in like that, so that when we move this code inside and back into the town, that when you got to run it next, nobody has to think about it. You just simply write instructions, copy database from here, put it in this file, copy database, put it in this file, do this, and then the code just runs. Otherwise, if somebody has to do a bunch of interim transformations on it, it'll just fall apart.
Hey, Mike,
we're not looking at it.
Why? I don't understand why we can't just use, what do you have, 1,700 in that transfer station file now? Names and addresses and plate numbers?
Yeah, 1,800 plus.
1,800? Why can't we just give you that list? Why do you need?
Well, that we had the question of, is there privacy? What's the rights? What are the rights?
If we were going to a vendor to build software, we'd simply have an agreement with them.
You would, but we're not. We haven't signed up. Somebody just got to tell us it's okay and make sure it's okay.
Well, all we need is an agreement by Mike and Synchrony. What do they call Synchrony?
Synchrony, yeah.
Mike's sort of doing it, not as part of his job.
Right.
Well, that's the other piece. Remember, he's helping out here.
Yeah, so he's doing it as part of his commission or his committee role.
Community service.
Yeah.
So, which we're asking him to confirm to it in the email. He's accepting this list and will not disclose it to anyone. Just the
as soon as you do that dealing with this, as I do every day in and day out with financial institutions these days, Kevin, you know what's going to happen. First thing a financial institution is going to say is, "Whoa, what liability am I taking on here?"
Well. Are they regulated?
You used to be the one giving those.
I'm familiar with these issues. I was the privacy lawyer at Merrill.
I know you. That's what I'm saying. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what we're talking about. But again, we're doing it for a developmental purpose, and people do that all the time with a software developer.
So the questions we had is, one, is there any issue with us, the TAC committee members, having access to that data, right? Just clarification, right? I don't know that. I don't know what the privacy requirements are. And then 2, bringing it to somebody else. That's kind of the key question.
We would do it by an agreement.
Yeah.
Right.
If this person was doing it not in their capacity at the company, but as a volunteer capacity,
Right.
Could they be deputized?
Yeah,
as
that's my
part of
point.
this?
That's my point. That, you know, they could be deputized, but to the extent he's gonna have an employee do it for him asynchrony, I'd like that confirmation back from that individual.
Well, what can happen is they could work on sample sets of this
Yeah.
that we get permission from, and then I could actually go run it on
Okay.
my own PC or something like that,
Oh, I see.
if I had permission to do it, right?
Yeah.
And have the
Yeah,
information.
but the concept of deputizing, as far as the committee members, is easy. And otherwise, we'd want it by agreement with the other people who are not affiliated with it.
Okay.
So that's what we need. That's what we need to
Yeah,
get.
that's a small hurdle to get over.
Okay. Because then we can get, if we can get all those databases, then we got permission to take them, we can start, then we
Right.
can take the short algorithms we built and then really test against a broader set. And we're gonna find more issues, Kevin. We're gonna find more issues.
It seems so simple, though.
By the way, when you start looking at that
Name,
data,
address, email address, phone number, plate number, I mean, right?
if you remember what Connor and Ryan, just remember Connor, Germany, Ryan, Boston, registered on the database, full contact
We're gonna throw
information.
Connor and Ryan out
They-
because.
They
we
look
don't-
like New Canaan, they look like New Canaan residents.
No, well, but again, they may sign up for programs at the rec department, but quite honestly, for this purpose, they're not taxpayers.
But I agree, but you got it. But remember, what we're talking about then is you're talking about who do you hit the delete key on?
Right.
Anybody who, beyond the 2 adults in the household.
Now you may, that's what today
No,
looks
except, you
like.
know, in fairness, I mean, occasionally, sometimes someone has a grandmother living with them, they're a resident, they're a voter, we should include them. So I really don't care about the kids. Especially the kids.
The top is how do you identify them and everything. We'll come back to that later. Don't worry. What we're gonna do is we're gonna be very inclusive. We're gonna bring everybody in, and then we can decide what you can target. Because it'd even be better to have everybody and then say, hey, here's a field. If you want to target only people above blah.
That's fair. That's
Right.
fair.
And I think, Kevin, that, you know, if we go down this path, this sets us up for the future, right? So
Yeah.
next year we could run it again. So it's not, oh, we need another set of interns.
Right.
And or to Bob's point, you know, it's got birth date in there, so he doesn't have to worry about the next who graduates into the,
Yeah.
you know, senior population, whatever the
Right.
needs are.
Well,
So,
that's fair. I didn't think about it from that point of view. It could be a multi-purpose tool beyond what, right.
Okay.
so,
So
okay.
Okay, we're getting there. Is
We
All
this-
right.
just,
getting
we just
there.
need to,
Is
we
this the
just
fifth
need to
month
put
or
our
the fifth month
financial
this time?
services hat on in terms of
Yeah.
privacy.
So
Yes.
we'll do is, so there's a follow-up, we'll circle back, I'll circle back with Mike, Bob, and we'll just, yeah, Kevin, we may reach out to you just
Okay.
to get clarity, but I think then we can move forward and then Mike and Mike, because I think it's worth a shot, like this is, at this point, this is all, you know, volunteer work, so I think there's minimal
Yeah.
downside.
and we've got the files, we got the code started.
Yeah.
Getting there.
So it
Good.
feels like it's worth the exercise, right? And then if it doesn't seem to work, then we go for plan B.
And so far, I've been my own intern.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pay you.
So, all right, now this was
You gotta
good.
pick the right interns for this job. I got a summer job for my son at Citibank one summer to consolidate a 4,000 name HR database. I swear he was contemplating suicide. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
it's very lonely because no one's gonna work with you. They won't talk with you because you're off in a corner. Just keep that in mind when you
And you-
select.
And to your point, you got to be detail oriented, because if you just sort of
Yeah.
gloss over hit
Very.
every third point, sort of kills the purpose. Someone else is going to have to go back.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing I learned today is we've got all those inbound emails they're all complaints, but I'm sure, Kevin, there's a lot in there to say, hey, just, you guys are doing a great job. Just wanted to email you.
You can set up a template for him.
hey, Chris Kaiser.
Yes, sir.
Is Kevin mentioned all of the emails that are in Outlook? Is there an easy way to pull those out?
No, we would have to do a full, because we archive in and out 7 years, town people and town employees and lifetime police fire. So if they were sent to Kevin or anybody else inside, we would have to do just a full blown search on whatever it is going back how many years, year or two, 3
But if
years,
we
whatever
just
it is.
say we want to pull from the last year or whatever period of time.
Yeah, we're just going to have to go through them. It's going to be hundreds of thousands
How soon do they archive, Chris? They archive like every month?
immediately. Immediately.
immediately. Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
you send it,
Oh, okay.
it gets archived before it even gets to the Exchange servers.
Got it. See, so you're not holding a year's worth on the Exchange servers now or anything?
Nope, 7 years for employees and lifetime for PD and fire.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so easy.
Yeah. We can run it. It's just we'll just have to put someone on it, that's
Well,
all.
but if we ran it, what we'd do is we'd have to take a sample set of them.
Right.
And then build the Python code against it, and then run it all at once when you do it.
Yeah, that's
Right,
actually,
you have to break down the filters, how you want the data to
Exactly.
come back out. Yep.
that's actually better to be used as a tool to use as a hole filler. You know, you're looking for this, you discover we're 3% short on what we're trying to get, and we go back and we look in, try to find somebody's contact information.
No.
It's a resource for us.
The problem you have with the screen door.
Yeah.
in the way it's-
Yep.
How do you
Okay. All right, well, that was good conversation. Thank you. Any other questions around the database project? Bob, anything else on your end? I think we've covered a lot, but just want to make sure.
No, it's, I'm learning an awful lot. Sometimes I get tired. A lot going on here.
Yeah.
A lot
Come
going
Come on, Bob, you signed up for this.
No, it's
It's
interesting.
like fun, frankly.
No, I'm finding it interesting. Look what we're doing just for this, for the testing Friday.
Bob's done a heck of a job, no doubt about it.
Bob, just speaking of that, and before the meeting started, you mentioned, how are you collecting payment? Is it on the web or in person when they show up?
RecTrack.
Rec track in
But
advance.
It's web.
Same
Has
way
to
it's
be
we
online.
did,
prepaid.
same way we
Right.
did it with the transfer station.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
We're using the e-commerce portion of the Family Fourth, if you will.
Very
Same
cool.
idea.
Very cool. Okay, so that leaves just open business. Any other topics anyone wants to bring up?
I want to
We
ask
mentioned,
Mr.
Jeff,
Abbott,
we're having a
since
website.
we've got
We
him
have
here.
monthly website meetings.
Yeah.
Always
We have a website
think
meeting
about
tomorrow.
overall
Paul, you gonna join us?
Wait, hold on, Paul, hold on one sec. I'm sorry. So the question is website?
Paul joins us for the website meetings monthly.
Um,
Paul?
We'll be seeing you tomorrow morning, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to mention that we continue to have an agenda for enhancing the website and trying to add online services and things like that.
I
So
was kind of impressed with the level of usage seems quite steady. I mean, it's, I don't know if you took out the real estate agents who are looking at the assessor stuff, but what it would look like.
yeah, for example, we did Google Analytics to see what the
Yeah,
usage
that's
is.
what I was looking at this afternoon that Sal sent over.
Yeah. And for example, what's my point?
Website usage.
Oh, for example, the assessor decided to replace, what did he replace? He replaced the software,
Software for, yeah.
but he
Yeah,
didn't tell anybody. He just did it, right?
real estate agents were pissed off and were sending me emails saying, you're in charge of the website, fix this. I said, no.
So it does the same thing, but it looks different and it doesn't have some of the features that it had before. But a perfect example of how someone just does it, no one,
Yeah.
no communication, there's no planning, anyway, that's the way town hall works.
And there's little things, for example, we have a number of streets that are apostrophe S. And somehow we've lost that. So I sent that to Sebi. I said, this is not showing up with apostrophe S anymore. And I've been painstakingly making sure our databases have the apostrophe in those streets that have to have it.
Well, it's a question of what's the, St. Peter, Father Peter's Lane, right? Does the US Postal Service recognize Father Peter's Lane with an apostrophe? Or do you take out the apostrophe, right? So
I used to use the assessor database as our gospel, but evidently not.
yeah.
But we
But
don't,
what I would
sit
use-
down.
What I would do is what the US Postal Service does. I mean, they have an official way of presenting Father Peter's Lane,
Right.
with or without the apostrophe.
And that's the point of that. That's the point of that API.
Yeah.
They've been
Because,
through it. they've been
because that's
through
what
it.
FedEx and everybody else uses, and, you know,
Sure.
Amazon, they all use the common language.
So Kevin, you brought up the website. Is there anything else? Obviously, Paul's in those meetings, so is updating us. Is there anything else you'd like us to look at, help, advise, anything?
You know, we're focusing on, are people updating the content? You know, because it's kind of like easy to lose track of the fact that you haven't looked at your content in 6 months. We flip the pictures over from the photos over from fall to winter, and try to keep it interesting. Again, we're looking at, you know, can we add online services, especially things that our vendor Revise may have available to other municipalities and we're not using yet, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
it's a constant challenge to try to challenge folks at the town hall.
No,
All right, so we'll keep website
It's
on
never
our,
changed.
yeah.
It has never changed.
I'm very pleased with the website. I think it's
I think it's
Yeah, I think we've
quite
felt the same.
functional.
and actually the
thanks
only
to
piece
Anna
left.
Marie, it actually looks good.
Yeah, the only piece we haven't brought in is the police department still has their website of their own, which, you know, I'm not, ideally, like, just like with Lapham Center, we brought it in under the fold, you know, so I'd like to accomplish that. And we will perhaps get that done, so.
Okay, and then Paul, sorry, were you bringing up a different topic?
I was going to ask Mr. Abbott, since he was in person,
Go
how
ahead.
we're doing with moving everything to the cloud.
Oh, moving everything.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you, it's never been going faster everywhere. That's why you can't find me right now.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's gonna have anything left on prem anywhere
Yeah.
after this COVID stuff. It just proved beyond a doubt that you can react so much faster.
What's your
Companies
betting on
have
how much Zoom is going to be used after COVID?
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. You know, I wish we could. You gotta be careful what I say here. But talking to some major banks right now, there's this. Without naming names, there was one that CEO said, "There's no way I'm gonna explicit let people work from home, get them back in the explicit office." As you can imagine, this was 6 months ago. They've now seen that their productivity has gone up 20%.
Whoa.
So, and what's happened statistically is that these individuals people have traded basically their commute time, and I'm a good example, right?
Right.
They traded commute time for work time. So I mean, my day now starts at 7 a.m. I was late on this call because I was finishing up a call at 7 p.m.
Right.
right before this call.
Right.
And you're not spending any more time related to work than you were before.
Yeah, it's more now, and so now this person who said I want him back in the office said major bank too. No way. I want him. I'm going to have him commuting. I don't expect anybody to be in the office more than 50% of their time ever again.
Wow.
I want to wind down my commercial real estate footprint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
what's nice.
This is coming. I'm telling you this. We have, and I see it every day with what I'm doing. 'Cause it's put aside, you know, let's all hope and get a vaccine and get this thing behind us. But this has fundamentally altered the calculus of commuting and a whole host of other things.
I
Which
saw
I
my
think, by the way,
commuter parking
makes our town a lot more attractive going forward.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly showed up right now, but I think it's going to be even better.
Sure.
Right.
You've
I
got
solved my
Metro
commuter
North,
parking problem.
you've got
Yeah.
Metro North, you've got real estate, you've
Yeah.
got subway, every infrastructure that's based on large numbers of people moving into the city every day is seriously impacted.
Yeah.
It is going to be permanently impacted, I think. And
Yeah.
it's not, and by the way, this isn't just us, New York. I mean, I deal with people all around the globe. I mean, this is happening in London. It's happening in Europe. Yeah, Asia a little less so because they can tell them to do what they want to do. But
How do you find people using Zoom versus Blue Jeans versus Microsoft Teams or what various products?
so the most popular I see, I mean, we use Teams and a lot of people use Teams, and Teams is federated. So I think I don't know if we have an Outlook. I don't know what our town situation is. Teams seems to be the one that a lot of businesses are coming through because it ties in with Outlook and everything works together with Microsoft Office, and you can link up documents and everything. It's pretty good. A lot of people still using Zoom. You see some WebEx also out there. You see Blue Jeans, Blue Jeans seems to be dying off. Less and less of that. I've had some clients that had it, but now they stopped it and they're moving over to Zoom along those lines.
Right.
What's interesting was, Kevin, you'll appreciate this, the investment banks, all these banks had to blow holes through their firewalls and let this stuff work. That was the biggest problem they had.
Yeah.
They had locked down security so tight, they actually could not use the basic calls. They couldn't talk to vendors if they weren't on the same format. So they had to blow holes into all this stuff overnight to kind of get it to work. There's still banks to this day, not to be named, who are just not very well run. But they can't take like Teams calls because their technology hasn't figured out how to do it yet.
Wow.
It's
Can
like
I bring
crazy.
up another topic, Jeff?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to digress here.
No, that's helpful. So the other thing is, the storm in August revealed a couple problems we have in New Canaan, one of which is how bad Optimum service is.
Yes.
And it's pretty much got a monopoly on, and with people working at home, they really notice.
Sure.
So we met with our Optimum representative, and she said, well, the average cable company has 1% of their customers down at any point in time, which is
That's nice.
kind of industry norm. Which,
Okay, so we really suck.
well, so a number of towns around the metropolitan area have complained about Optimum. They're bought by, actually, it's a public company now. Altice
They're
North
bought by
America.
Altice out of France, and they've been grinding down the expense and making.
No. They had been doing that, but now they spun off North America as Altice North America, a public company. And but their service level stinks. I got to be careful. But what it raised was the possibility of, should we try to get more competition in town?
Yes, please.
Yes.
And how do
Technology committee will be like, we're all voting for it.
well, believe me, I'm just responding to what people are complaining about. And so I have Tucker Murphy working on the Optimum thing in particular, but
They're gonna have to see that what we we're just talking about, people working from home, is in fact a sufficiently permanent change, so they're willing to. It's a capital investment issue.
well, exactly. So that's the point. That's the point, Paul. So if you look at internet service alone, because a lot of people are also cutting the cord and using Hulu and all these other streaming services, right?
By the way, I turned in 8 cable boxes today. Well, actually, my wife did. We
Whoa.
cut the entire cord on Cablevision or LT.
So
I'm
here's,
5 years done.
so here's the other side of the equation. The telecoms are coming in with 5G, looking to bring internet and from the street rather than having your modem from the cable company, right?
Right.
Because I find I'm on my Verizon internet more often than I'm on even when I'm home, I'm still using my Verizon because it's unlimited, right? And so we need more. But here's the thing: all of a sudden, Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T says we have 5G nationwide, and they have it in the cities, right? I mean, T-Mobile actually, because of their combination with Sprint, they already had a lot of shorter broadband, and they've really been able to say we're covering the nation. But their 5G is not nearly as good as Verizon's, right? It's 5G, but it's a low-level 5G, but it's still 5G. And AT&T told us 2 years ago, you're not going to see 5G in New Canaan for 5 years. So how do we we have an interest in solving this problem of not relying only on a subpar cable company for internet service and jump starting into the 5G era. We still need more 4G towers because it's a big city, it's a big town, it's land-wise, right? We're not going to be able to bring 5G everywhere, but we ought to at least bring it downtown. And also then 4G can be pretty darn good internet service from the tower.
It can be. I've tried. By the way, I used just personal experience when Optimum, when we went down like that, and I tried to use a MiFi from Verizon down here, that connection. It worked good up until about 7 a.m. when everyone woke up, and then it just went. So the 4G doesn't cover it up. I think the 5G, Kevin, the biggest benefit of 5G will not be the phones. It will be over the air to the house, to the extent we can make that work, because then you can just put up towers in certain areas and cover 30, 40, 50 homes rather than running fiber to every single one.
Right.
The other option is, I think some towns have built out their own, I mean, this gets a little crazy, but I think some towns have built out their own fiber networks put the capital and then release them out to operators and then get really low cost.
So here's
Right.
another idea. Frontier, which has 45% of the town wired with UVerse, right? Because they bought the UVerse from AT&T, but they have a crappy service in terms of, right?
Yeah.
So they're now marketing just internet service through their right, for $16 a month. I just got a mailer.
But is that DSL copper pairs? or
No,
is that
it's not
through
copper.
fiber?
It's fiber. It's fiber to the home
Oh,
only, right? But it's not a content. You know, Frontier, which by the way, Frontier has to stay in business because they are the fiber behind every cell tower around, right? So they will be in business somehow, even though they're a failing company in many ways. But whether or not they would be willing to sell their UVerse network because it, you know, and use that as a competitor to Optimum, it only covers 45% of the town.
so maybe, I mean, this is more the business side of me. I'm not a politician, but maybe you cut a deal with Frontier, the town, you put something together where you cover the rest of the town with fiber, but then Frontier runs it at a
Yeah.
lower cost structure. Because then people could buy, if you could get fiber to the home and get gigabit fiber in everybody's home somehow, and even if I bet you people would pay $50-$60 a month because the cable.
Well, that's
People will
something
move into this town for that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Henry. I think this is like a kind of worthy.
No, it's really is like attractive marketing
I
investment.
think the fiber in every home.
Yeah,
because it's really a necessary thing for a modern town. If you want to be a competitive town, you've got to have internet.
I would favor fiber over the 5G because I think the fiber,
Right.
the 5G with rain and stuff like that's going to be degraded.
Right,
But
exactly.
you put fiber in every home and put some of the packaging like that, they could be a home run.
I don't want to throw water on this, but I live in a no phone zone here. We don't have cable,
Cell phone.
cell phone, telephone service.
Well, Paul, that's why I'm saying fiber everywhere. Fiber.
Because once you have fiber, you know, all your phones run off your Wi-Fi in the house anyway. As long as you have.
That's why I can't give up the cable, because without the
Well,
voice over IP, I would be.
that's where you'd have that. By the way, Paul, that's where you'd have the fiber would replace your cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have
Here's the very important issue that right now, the delivery of internet service is a not regulated activity.
Right.
And there's no way to incentivize those companies to provide it broadly. I mean, there's a terrific problem in this country with the lack of internet service. With all these kids going to school,
Yeah.
New Canaan obviously less impacted by this,
Yeah.
but a lot of places, there's no incentive for the local companies to provide it, and because it's totally unregulated. In 1996, they got themselves relieved of it because they were, quote, an innovative industry. You don't want to
Yeah.
mess that up. But now it's more essential than telephone service that is
Right.
regulated. It's more essential than well, not more than electricity, but
Yeah.
it's right up there.
So I thought.
That I'm just saying that aspect of it has to be taken into consideration when you try to get this stuff done or try to influence how it's going to evolve.
Well, Paul, that's why for our town, I mean, I'll put the broader context beyond us. That's what I'm saying for our town. You'd shoot for 100% coverage,
Yeah.
full coverage.
Well, and that's where, again, I mean,
If you don't shoot for 100%, then
Right.
Frontier.
I would.
Then I'm
That's
never
what I
gonna
say.
have
That's
service.
so, Paul. That's what I say. If you have 40 with Frontier, and you find a way to get the other 60.
you build that out.
So I'm going to have the general counsel and EVP at Frontier is a friend of mine, Mark Nielsen. I'm going to see if we can have a conversation about, because I'm sure, you know, they have a dying product with their UVerse system service.
Why is that? I'm not convinced that it's fiber.
It's fiber?
I'm not convinced that it's fiber.
Well, it's fiber.
Fiber to the neighborhood perhaps, but from there, from the box down the street to the home.
Well, it's not copper. It may be coaxial from the, because you don't take fiber and then drop it down to copper.
Yes, you do.
Do
Not
you?
to interrupt, Kip. Yes, you do. It's fiber down to Ethernet.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
They've had it up in my area for years. It's still failing. The problem is their conversion between the fiber 2 is not 1 gig. It's not It's slower than ever, but they did run glass, but they're running copper back to the house. So your house now is Ethernet or wireless.
That's what I was afraid of.
Well, but that doesn't mean you couldn't.
Well, there's a company that's been doing North Connecticut, Hartford, Willimantic area. Sharon, I know Sharon went with it. I think it's called New County, and they're actually digging fiber to every household. But the town has to go to bed with them to do it
But why do you have to dig it? Why can't you just string it?
because they're doing it from the pole underground to the house. That's what their pitch was.
Well, why do you have to do that? Right now, you have phone wires or electric wires and cable
I'm not
wires.
saying you have to, Kevin. I'm just saying that's what they chose to do.
Well, it's very expensive compared to just stringing it. So
That's why
Well,
you end up
wouldn't
with,
it be like more secure once you do it, just do it properly instead of, because then if it's above ground, it's as vulnerable as any other service.
well, the trouble is you're going to be vulnerable if anything strikes the system. If it's underground to the house and it's above the wires, you know, everything's not going to be underground. So you're going to lose the network outside,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
even if it.
I
So
guess so, but
But
my
by the
point
way,
is, there's sort of a business opportunity here to figure out how we can, because as you said, people are willing to pay for good
Yeah.
internet service.
Chris, isn't our fiber underground?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
yeah, the WAN is underground,
But that's
By the
in
way-
the center.
and that's real fiber.
Well,
Oh, it sure
the
is.
town has a private network underground.
And what's a very interesting concept, though, that Mike originally brought up here is that if somehow we could have the competitive edge by wiring our houses with the fiber optic in this community, that enhances the real estate demand.
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about.
If
But
we
that's
do
what
it,
we're
if
talking-
we do it by, if we do
couldn't
it instead of
we couldn't do it as a
Darien
town
or
of
the other
Buchanan.
town.
We have to have a company market this.
it used to, Kevin, it used to be, I'm dating myself now, but upstate New York, they used to have these things called co-ops in towns that basically said, hey, well, it's kind of like what you did with the WAN around the town. They must have done it years ago. I wasn't here. But you co-op, and it's a co-op, and it's owned by, the stuff's owned by the town. They hire an operator to operate the thing.
Right.
Right. It's interesting. So the operator doesn't have to put the capital out. You put the capital out, but then the operator runs it, takes the
Right.
profit on top of it,
Right.
keeps the thing up and running, and you kind of, it's an old concept, been around for decades. Decades. It used to be done in electricity,
Right.
super cheap.
Yeah.
That's how we run the WAN, by the way, Mike.
Yeah, so that makes sense, right? I mean, I
We
don't
break it out to every building and every usage and whoever per port. So it's kind of like a co-op. Each building, each department pays for their share.
Right, and that's how you'd probably, if you did something like this, but then you have an operator, you're I guess the operator of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but just fine. But that it's a concept. I mean, there might be creative ways of public-private partnerships to actually make it happen. But I agree with Paul, it would be 100%. You'd want to shoot for 100% of the town. Everyone's covered.
Right. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about, and because you know, it's very obvious we have a hole in our
Well,
local economy.
I will tell you the 5G, just to give you an update of what's going on with the 5G. I understand people understand what, or you guys have an idea of what it is. Their concept with it is 10 gig backhaul, 1 gig to each household via fiber. Fiber goes
via
outside your neighborhood. 1, 2, depending on how big your neighborhood is, they drop a box on the wire that'll run a gig to your house for your subscription via wireless, 1,000 feet, 100, depending on how far it is
That's
from
right.
pole to your house.
Yep.
So they will
That's
give
right.
you 1 gig service.
yeah, so that makes sense. That's what I've heard too, is they'll drop 10 gig. They'll drop 10 gig to like a tower. They'll put a wireless thing on top. You'll put little beacon, you'll put little antennas on your windows, somewhere in your window.
Right.
And that'll pick up the 1 gig signal.
Right.
Right. You'll bring that in yourself to your house, but
That's
just like
the
the
Verizon.
utilities,
That's
Yeah.
the Verizon AT&T strategy to compete with the cable companies.
that's the Sprint too. You're going to see, you guys are closer than I am. Up in Orange, where I live, we're not even close to what you guys are going to experience pretty soon. But Sprint's already done this throughout all of Long Island, and they've dropped all those boxes on all the wires on Altice 10 gig fiber. That's why you saw the fiber trucks in New Canaan for the past year and plus. And they're going to actually light up, and you're going to have competitive rates
When?
very soon.
When?
Well, it's as soon as Verizon's finished done doing what they're doing, you're going to see Xfinity, because that's who Verizon partnered with. You're going to see Verizon and FiOS, and you're going to see T-Mobile, Sprint, and Altice. And that's the idea for them. Remember, they came in and they sent the letter. We're not doing this commercial or residentially right away. We're just dragging new fiber, and that's exactly what they're going to do with it. Is they're going to bring it to the household, especially for New Canaan, if you will, because we don't have a ton of commercial.
Right.
So it's all residential. Right.
They're doing the 10 gig back. They're doing the 10 gig backhaul on the towers, dropping a repeater, a wireless 5G repeater.
Right. Every half a mile or so. Yep.
Yeah, that's about right. And by the way, that way you can do some seriously high frequency and bandwidth. You
Absolutely.
won't be stepped on.
That's right. And you don't have to go high on the towers.
No, you don't.
You keep it low on the wire, and then you let the tower do it for the backhaul for the secondary. If you keep it on the wire, right, underground, your primary is safe and secured until someone, obviously, if it goes over to Norwalk or Exit Pole. But now the backhaul it'll split there and go up to the tower and out at 10 gig.
Yeah, you don't even want to go high with it.
Right.
That's cool. When do you think that's going to come here?
It's Sprint and Altice and T-Mobile are already doing it around your town. They're already dragging and dropping all these. If you drive by all the telephone poles now, you'll see these silver boxes.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be Altice, but you'll see them every half a mile now, maybe even smaller than that. And that's Sprint dropping their stuff online.
Interesting. And of course, I live in a subdivision, which won't work.
Say again, Jeff. I'm sorry.
That was
buried,
Mike.
buried wires.
So is there a way, Chris, for us just to get more information from, how do we get more information from whomever, Sprint, Verizon? I mean, they're doing the laying of the wire, but what's their timing, just so we know?
No idea. They pushed it through Public Works. We sat and spoke with them about a year and a half ago, because we're always trying to save money on the phones that we, especially from my, an IT perspective budget, going to all the departments and trying to say, okay, great, the cost for unlimited is what? Because that's what you're going to need, right? Police cars, EMS trucks, all the rigs, all that stuff.
Right.
So that was about a year and a half ago. We can reach back out, but I know that Verizon has dragged miles of it. Sprint had already done it, but they waited for Altice to do theirs, because then they just piggybacked on there and jumped on on their service. And I got to be honest,
It's such a well-kept secret.
it's not a secret. It was out there. There was fiber trucks all over your town, Paul.
No, but
But I will tell you that this service is terrible. My whole family I moved them over with my kids and said, okay, great, Altice, $20 a month. This is great. I am the last town in Connecticut that can acquire Altice. I'm not happy with their service whatsoever. Phone service, mobile.
well, Altice is Optimum, so.
Yeah.
And by
No,
the
but
way,
they're also they're Sprint first and AT&T. And because Sprint and T-Mobile joined, it really didn't work out well. But they don't have those mini cell service boxes on the wires up here yet. They have them all over your town.
So
I'll get some information. I'll send it out to everybody.
yeah, if you could get it, I think that would be helpful, because obviously everyone else on this call is not familiar with it. At least, enough that would be great to know what that time
Yeah,
is.
no problem. Absolutely.
And then Kevin, your conversation with you verse or the Frontier person, if there's something there, we can connect the dots between the two.
You know what, when we met with Frontier like 5 years ago, when we were trying to work on cell towers, we met with a guy who said, at the time, this was amazing at the time, he said 60% of the traffic on Frontier wires was Netflix. And they don't get paid a nickel by Netflix for that traffic.
That's where bandwidth throttling came in.
Yeah.
But that's the reality.
Right.
But that's why it's it's a core utility pipe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
All right.
else?
So yeah, it sounds like that's so more to come there. But I think this is a great topic for us to keep on our agenda, and if we can get more information for next month, that would be a good topic for then as well.
I'm trying to figure it out so I could use all the advice we can find.
Great. Yeah, happy to help you.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? Okay. So
Nope.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Any second?
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
All
Thanksgiving.
votes? All in favor?
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll chat with you next month.
Happy Thanksgiving,
That
guys.
was good. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Dan.